Hey guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to have a chat with you guys about whether we think it is still worth paying the prices of Chanel Classic flap bags in 2021 in the context of the huge price jumps that Chanel Classic flaps saw in the last year or so, making their prices awfully close to the prices of Hermès Birkins and Kellys, which were traditionally a lot more expensive than the Chanel Classic flaps. So I'm going to share my thoughts on whether I think it is worth the price tag on the Chanel Classic flaps on the basis of the current prices, the craftsmanship and the quality, and the style of these bags and versatility of these bags. And I'm going to give you my verdict on whether I'll be purchasing a Chanel Classic flap today if I didn't have one in my collection. So stay tuned right till the end of the video to hear my verdict on the matter if you are interested. If this happens to be the first video of mine that you clicked on, welcome. I am so glad to have you here. I'm Isabelle. I do videos on luxury, fashion and mindful shopping. So if that sounds like your cup of tea as well, I'd love it if you consider subscribing to my channel. That will truly mean so much to me. So let's talk about the current prices. Chanel Classic flaps in Australia at the moment retails for over 10,000 Australian dollars. Of course, the prices vary between sizes. If you're going for the larger, say, jumbo size, you're paying around 12,000 Australian dollars. And even from medium large, closer to $11,000. And I believe the small flap is just under at around 9,800. And if you're comparing between, say, smaller size Birkins like the Birkin 25s in a Togo leather or a Kelly 25, literally the price difference between a jumbo classic flap and a Birkin 25 will be only, say, 1,000 Australian dollars. So when you compare these prices, and when you compare the craftsmanship and the quality between the Chanel Classic flaps and the Hermès Birkins and Kellys, you can definitely see that, technically the Hermès bags are probably a better deal in terms of what you get for your money, because Hermès handbags are completely handcrafted by very highly trained artisans in France, and each artisan takes about 24 to 48 hours to complete one Birkin or Kelly bag. So there is no doubt that the craftsmanship is definitely far superior with the Hermès elusive bags, whereas Chanel Classic bags are still machine made. There is no doubt that Chanel Classic flap bags are still very, very well made. I personally haven't had any issues with my classic handbags. At the moment, this beige Claire medium large is the only classic flap in my collection, but in the past I also owned a black jumbo and that one saw no quality issues as well. But I have heard of a lot of quality issues with more recent Chanel bags, like the bag having a crooked flap and those obvious visual quality issues. So on craftsmanship and quality alone, the Hermès really wins. But when we talk about prices, it is very unrealistic to compare the prices of the classic flaps and the Hermès bags just with their boutique retail prices. And that is because Chanel Classic flaps, more or less, you can walk into a store and if they have stock, you are able to purchase with no spending history in the store. Whereas with the Hermès Birkins and Kellys, it is very rare for you to be able to get one of these bags without having some sort of a prior purchase history with the boutique. And that is with the exception of Paris. So with the Paris flagship store at FSH, you can definitely make an appointment, walk in and walk out with a bag without any purchase history or with very little purchase history. I have personal experience with that. My very first Birkin, which is this black Birkin in the size 30, I purchased from the Paris mothership store with very little purchase history, and I don't think that purchase history really even mattered. I had bought 2 pairs of shoes the day before. So scoring a bag from the Paris mothership store is an exception. But realistically, if we're talking about our own local stores, whether it be like me here in Australia, Sydney, your home stores in the US, Asia, wherever, you generally need a purchase history before you're offered one of these elusive bags. And the amount that you spend before you're offered a bag varies between individuals and between stores, but it is very rare for an Hermès store to sell one of these bags to you if you're not an existing customer who has spent some money before. So when we consider all of those factors, you can see it is going to be very, very difficult comparison between the two. So with an Hermès bag, you may be paying a lot more than, the sticker price on these bags. Now let's talk about the styles of these bags. So let's have a look at the Hermès Birkins and Kellys first. So I've got my black Birkin in the size 30 here and my Kelly 25 in the cray color in the Celia style. So if you have a look at these bags, they are very simple. The style is rather understated unless you know the design of these bags. They don't have big logos anywhere. and they're just very classic looking bags. So when we're talking about a Birkin, I think that this is an exclusively day bag, even in the smaller sizes like size 25, because it is in that tote silhouette. So I definitely think that the Birkin isn't that versatile. It is a nice day bag and maybe a dinner bag in a smaller size, but I would definitely not really take it to a wedding or to a more dressy occasion. But because my lifestyle is a bit more casual, I certainly get a lot of use out of my Birkin. And when we have a look at the Kelly bag as well, I mean, it is a little bit easier to dress up a Kelly bag, but even then, unless you have a mini Kelly, which is tiny, even the 25 size like this one, it's probably more or less a day bag or a fancy dinner bag, but you can't probably dress this up enough to be a black tie event appropriate bag. So the Kelly bag is a little bit more dressy, but it is a very sort of specific style as well. So they're very nice day bags and they're still appropriate for some evening events. Now, when we have a look at the Chanel classic flaps, so this is my medium classic flap in the beige clay with the gold hardware. It is a completely different style to an Hermès aesthetic. So the Chanel classic flap is much easier to dress up. It is a much prettier bag in my opinion. So if we consider the Hermès bags quite simple with the simple lines and, you know, a very elegant style of bags, when you compare that to a Chanel classic flap, the Chanel classic flap has the chain strap, which is really, really beautiful. It's got the quilting, so definitely a lot more design features. The CC turn lock, the back pocket, it is a very different sort of a bag. And in terms of versatility, you can definitely dress the Chanel classic flap up and down a lot easier. I mean, a Chanel classic flap in a size medium or smaller is definitely very appropriate for very fancy evening attire as well. And Chanel classic flaps are just a totally different style of bags. These are dressy shoulder bags rather than like a top handle bag like the Hermès bags. So in my opinion, when it comes to the style of a Chanel classic flap, there's nothing quite like it. And it is definitely not really comparable to the styles of the Hermès Birkin and Kelly bags. Now let's talk about the resale value. Now I don't encourage anyone to really consider designer bag purchases as investment purchases because they are just not that. We like to loosely call them investment pieces in our wardrobes because we can use them for years to come. So the longevity of these classic bags are definitely there. The quality is very good, so they don't break down as quickly as some cheaper alternatives. And the other reason we'd like to sort of loosely call these investments is because the retail price of these bags go up every single year, which protects the resale value somewhat of our bags. But in reality, if we were to resell one of our handbags that we have used, depending on the condition, you don't actually get the retail price for it. And second of all, with these very expensive handbags, it is quite stressful to sell on your own. So you usually probably have to use a consignment service and you have to pay the fees to the consignment store, which could be anywhere between 15 to even 40%. So you're really not left with too much. And while we're on the topic of resale value, Hermès elusive bags are probably the only exception. So in the right specs, yes, maybe you can make some money off them down the track even after using them for a good few years. So I'll give you one example. You know, say if you went to the Paris flagship store with no purchase history, you were very lucky to score a bag with very desirable specifications. Say, for example, you scored a Kelly 25 Cellier in a neutral color like black, a taupe, or gold, and you paid the French prices. By the way, the Hermès bags are much, much cheaper to buy in Paris. So say that was the situation, you can probably turn around and make a profit off that because one, you didn't have to do the pre-spend to be offered one of these bags, and two, you got a much better price for these bags because you paid the French prices. So in that case, say the Kelly 25 cost you around 6,000 to 7,000 euros, which is around 10,000 Australian dollars, and you went ahead and used it for a good 3-4 years, and it's still in very good condition, and you decide, you know what, I don't really want this bag anymore, or you need to recoup the money for something else, and you decided to sell it. And I've seen these sorts of bags on the resale market in excellent condition, selling for 25,000 Australian dollars and more. So if that is the case, and even if you use the consignment service and say pay the 20% consignment fee, for example, you're still going to be paid around 20,000 Australian dollars for this bag, and that is 100% profit on your investment. So in these scenarios, which definitely happen, these bags are excellent investments because not only you made money on it, but you got to use it for a few years as well. But in the majority of cases, if you purchase through your local boutique and already paid the higher prices than in France, and you've had to spend on other items already before even being offered one of these bags, then you're probably lucky to recoup the money that you've already spent. So all factors considered, resale value, I say, is just case by case anyway. Even with some Chanel bags, if you have a very, very unicorn color in a small classic flap or something, like that iridescent rose gold one from I think 17S collection, can't remember the exact collection, but from a few years back, I mean, those bags sell for double the retail price on the resale market. So both the Chanel classic flaps and the Hermès elusive bags, in terms of resale value, there's a lot of different permutations and combinations that can happen, so it's very difficult to have a simple comparison. Now onto my final verdict. Would I purchase a Chanel classic flap in 2021 at the current prices? If I didn't have one in my collection and I always wanted a Chanel classic flap, I still would pay the 2021 prices, but I would definitely just stick with one at the current prices. Obviously, if money is not an object and you have a lot of spare cash, you do you can go out and buy however many classic flaps you want, and the price isn't even a factor for you to consider. But for a working person like me, and probably a lot of you, we usually make considered purchases, especially at these sorts of price tags. We really consider these items wardrobe staples that we're going to use for years and years and years to come, so we can really get the cost per wear out of these items. So I know a Chanel classic flap will never go out of fashion, and even if you purchase one for say 11,000 Australian dollars today, imagine you used it for the next 10 years. And in 10 years time, who even knows, they will probably retail for $20,000, and you'll be really glad that you picked yours up 10 years ago, used it for 10 years and paid a lot less for it as well. And I can tell you, my classic flap is actually from the year 2015. So it is a 6-year-old bag, and look how perfect it still looks. I don't use this all the time, but I definitely had my use with it. But I literally have nothing to report in terms of how it's been wearing. And that is why I said to you earlier as well, I personally haven't had an issue with Chanel quality. I am still very happy with my 6-year-old classic flap bag. So if you're buying these bags with the intention of using it for the long run, I think it is still definitely worth paying the price tag. And I wouldn't necessarily compare the prices of the current Chanel classic flaps to the prices of the Hermès bags either, because in my opinion, they are apples and oranges. You really cannot compare the styles of both of them. So if I was just about to start collecting luxury handbags and I didn't have any Chanel classic flaps and I didn't have any Hermès bags, I wouldn't necessarily be thinking I was gonna get the Chanel classic flap, but they are, just as pricey as an Hermès Birkin, so I'm just gonna go for the Birkin. That would not be my thought process, because you just can't compare them. They have their own purposes. So if I was building my collection from scratch again, I would definitely still want a classic flap, even if I had Hermès dream bags. But for those of us who already have a classic flap or two in our collection, I personally don't think it is worth buying more classic flaps in the future. I know that I'm not going to be adding any more classic flaps to my handbag collection in the foreseeable future. I am very happy with my one beige Claire medium flap and also my mini flap as well. So the mini flaps are not technically classic flaps, but they have enough classic features in my opinion. So this is also a very good alternative to consider if you have always wanted a classic flap but you don't want to pay 11,000-12,000 Australian dollars, then look into the mini flaps, especially in the rectangular shape. The rectangular mini looks very similar to a classic flap in a small size, and that one at the moment retails for just over 6,000 Australian dollars, which I know is still a lot of money, but you're not having to shell out over $10,000 for it, and you still get the same beautiful silhouette and the same beautiful chain, the back pocket, the CC turn lock and everything. So that is a very good alternative to consider. So yeah, these are my little thoughts on the topic. What do you guys think? Would you still pay the money to get a Chanel classic flap, or would you just spend a bit more and get an Hermès bag? I'd love to know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. As always, thank you so much for watching and spending some of your precious time with me today, and I can't wait to see you again soon in my next video. Bye guys!